Hi, Desirae. It's so lovely to see you again after your stay that you had here at Sun Lover Retreat. And I was so intrigued with our over breakfast conversation that I knew that you would be the perfect person to interview for my hoster platform. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Donna. It was an absolute pleasure to stay with you guys. You live in such a beautiful part of the world and you have a wonderful bed and breakfast. And it was great for me to see that emphasis on sustainability coming through in your business. So I'm sorry I couldn't help myself. I had to talk about it over breakfast.
So glad you did, because you pointed out things to me that I probably didn't actually even realize. The interesting thing for me was I'd bought the bathroom amenities and with the whole sustainability thing in my head. And for you to point out, well, yes, some of those are recyclable, but some of them aren't. When you're thinking you're buying a full range of something and you're relying on the manufacturer to say, actually, that's exactly what you need to recycle, but you obviously have another level of detail that I don't have. So it was really good to have you here, actually. So thank you for
Yeah,
that.
pleasure. My husband was a little bit annoyed with me for basically walking around your house doing a sustainability audit on my weekend off, but never mind.
It's lucky for me. So even before we get started, I haven't even given you the opportunity to introduce yourself. So can you just introduce yourself and where you work and what your role is within that workplace?
Thank you. Kia ora koutou katoa, ko Desirae Kirby aho. I'm Desirae Kirby and I work at the Rotorua Sustainable Charter as their sustainability advisor. So I'm an engineer by training and I've worked mainly in the resource management, environmental management space, and in the last few years moved into the sustainability space. And I should probably explain what the Rotorua Sustainable Charter is
Oh,
too,
that's
I
quite a
guess.
mouthful. Big job.
Yeah.
Super big job.
Yeah. The charter is an incorporated society that was started in Rotorua 25 years ago this year. So very excited to be celebrating 25 years. And it was started by a group of tourism businesses in Rotorua who wanted to look after their impact on the planet and encourage other businesses to consider doing the same. And they set themselves the goal of making Rotorua the most sustainable destination in the Southern Hemisphere, which was a big goal at the time. But it's really a group of businesses who are committed to the sustainability journey. And my role is to help them with that. So whether it's providing technical advice about recycling or helping them to measure carbon footprint or running education and training, and quite often I act as a bit of a clearinghouse as well between members in terms of someone might be interested in putting in solar and I know a member who's already done that, and so I'll put them in contact with each other. And it's about helping each other not reinvent the wheel, and so we really do encourage peer learning amongst our members.
So is this charter and the role that you're providing, is this something that's replicated all over New Zealand, or is this something peculiar or particular to Rotorua?
Um, when we began, I think it was fairly unique. Like we're older than most of those other, sort of similar types of organisations out there. And at one point, after the charter had been running for a little while, there was some funding that was given out to the tourism industry to replicate the model in different areas, but that has all fallen by the wayside, and yeah, we're sort of the original and still going. But I mean, there's other organisations that obviously are working in that space, whether it's on a national level like the Sustainable Business Network, or locally in different areas.
Desiree, is it purely tourism businesses that are interested in using the intellect and the charter of Rotorua Sustainable Charter?
Initially it was, and in
Mm.
2011 we opened up the membership to businesses outside of tourism. And so we have members in areas like manufacturing, education, professional services, so accountants, lawyers. Yeah, quite a diverse range of businesses. We've got around 70 member businesses, and probably 70% of those would still be visitor economy. So either tourism attractions, hotels, motels, lodges, cafes, restaurants, that type of thing. And then the other 30% is made up of a mixture of quite diverse businesses. And our membership ranges from the largest employers in Rotorua. So, for example, businesses like Red Stag Timber, 400 plus employees, Toi Scion Research, the Rotorua Lakes Council, and the large tourism businesses like Skylines, Puia, large hotels like Millennium. But then there's also quite a group of, I guess, small to medium-sized businesses. So lots of pretty much any iconic tourism business you can think of in Rotorua is a member of the charter. And then right down to quite small businesses where it's, a husband and wife taking people for eco tours through the forest or something like that. So literally, yes, members with hundreds of employees and members with 2 employees.
Yeah.
So
It's
we
obviously,
sorry, I was
sorry,
just going to say,
carry on.
so we have a sliding scale for our membership fees. So
Yeah,
obviously, we're not asking a very small business to be paying the same level of fee as a very large one.
that's good to hear. Because sustainability goes across to the economic side as well, doesn't it? It's not just all about the environment. But 25 years is a heck of a long time. So have you noticed, or has your group noticed any changes to Rotorua tourism because of it?
Yeah, definitely. Sustainability is embedded into our destination management plan now, under the Te Aki Tau, the environmental sort of area. But we look at sustainability in the very broad lens. I think 25 years ago, when people were talking about sustainability, they would have been focusing on the environmental aspects. So, water, energy, waste, all that sort of thing. Whereas sustainability evolved into what was known as ESG, which was environmental. The S was social, socioeconomic, so the people side. So, the well-being of your staff, encouraging your visitors to get involved in sustainable thinking and your place in the wider community. And the G was sort of the governance, having policies and plans and things. And now when I talk about sustainability, I incorporate a 4th pillar, which is cultural. And for Rotorua, that's, particularly important, being New Zealand's first bilingual English te reo Māori city. And obviously we're in Te Wiki o Te Reo Māori week, which is quite apt. So that's a good time to mention it as well. And yeah, it's becoming more and more important for businesses to be able to talk about where they are in that sustainability space. And we've got so many natural assets in Rotorua that people are very focused on wanting to do the right thing and make sure that we, enhance the beautiful natural assets that we have. And of course, we also have the very precious taonga of the geothermal assets as well.
Yes, yeah, Rotorua would be a special case in a lot of places within New Zealand, wouldn't it? So would there be sort of any emerging issues that you could see that are coming to the fore as we slowly move forward on this sustainability journey?
Yes, definitely. Obviously, the one that will probably leap to most people's minds is climate change, and businesses needing to think about how they adapt to climate change. I mean, for Rotorua, that might be, you know, if there's a lot of rain, that means that the rivers are very high. And so for the rafting businesses on the Kaituna River, the river will be shut and they can't operate their businesses. So they've got to find alternative rivers to go to and so forth. It can impact, on the levels of the geothermal as well. You know, so climate impacts are going to be quite significant for the whole country, not just alone, you know, Rotorua alone. So I'm certainly seeing people wanting to start doing things like measuring their carbon emissions and so forth. We're working with Rotorua NZ on a program under the Destination Management Plan where we're working with, I think we're up to 31 businesses now, where they've been doing a sustainability development program with me. And part of that is measuring their carbon. And we're also noticing too that some of those big overseas kind of travel buyers are asking the question now, you know, is this business carbon neutral or have they measured their carbon, that type of thing. And the other thing I'm seeing happening is some of the businesses, such as like the big motels where they're going for contracts for, you know, government department hosting people, that type of thing, they're getting asked about their sustainability performance. And so we're seeing sustainability being written into tender documents and things like that. And even I went to a seminar that Westpac did last year where for some of their loan products, they're even looking at things like sustainability when they're doing due diligence. So not just financial and workplace health and safety, they're looking at what the business is doing with sustainability. And they actually have a loan product where if the business meets certain sustainability targets, they get a slight reduction in their loan percentage, which was really cool to see. So, you know, I mean, when the big end of town is starting to do that type of thing, it will filter down to all of us eventually.
Wow, that's actually quite fascinating that they are putting that into the loan documents.
Yeah.
And interesting about the climate change, I'm just thinking about my own sustainability plan. I don't think I have anything in there about the impacts of climate and the climate change. That's an interesting little objective, isn't it, to actually ensure that we do have something in our plans.
The government's currently working on a climate adaptation plan for New Zealand, and the big focus is very much around making it an equitable process. So, you know, I mean, it's all very well for someone who can afford to, you know, sell their house and move away and, you know, move up on the hill like you are, or you know, buy the electric vehicle or whatever it happens to be. But, you know, it's really important that as we look at how New Zealand is going to respond to the changes that are definitely going to be happening to us, that we work out how to do that so that all of society, I guess, is able to, you know, to cope with that. Yeah. And it just no, sorry, I was just gonna say the one other area that I'm seeing a lot more people talking about, and certainly I'm encouraging our members to head down that road, is around sustainable procurement, and getting it right with what you actually bring into your business. If you make smart choices about what you bring in the door and the amounts of things you bring in the door, the type of packaging it's got, where it's sourced from, you know, is it coming from a country with modern slavery issues or whatever it happens to be, you can quite significantly reduce things like carbon footprints, the amount of waste you're producing, and so on and so on. And there's an awful lot of greenwash out there these days, you know. And part of my role is to kind of help our members with questions around that. So people might, you know, email me and go, okay, you know, here's these 2 different types of toilet paper or whatever it happens to be. I think I answered a question for one of the lodges on Friday, and it was looking at water and were they going to get their water in bottles or recycled, you know, PET plastic bottles and what was the, the kind of the environmental, the carbon consequences of doing that and so forth. So yeah, they're the areas I think that are going to be more prevalent moving forward.
There's probably, I've got a couple of questions running around in my head, but I'll hit the first one, which is, we're all putting together these contracts and talking about our sustainability initiatives that we're running in our businesses. Do you think that the traveller is actually aware of the sustainability practice, and do they care?
That's a really, really good question. Two things probably. One, there's a group called, well, they were Colmar Brunton, but they're now called Kantar. They have been doing surveys in New Zealand for the last 14, 15 years on a variety of questions. And one of the questions they ask is, are you trying to live more sustainably to the consumers? And the figures for that have gone from, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to pull these out of my head, something like 19% at 14, 15 years ago to, I think it was up to like about 42 or 45% were saying yes, in 2022. The most recent figures, it has actually dipped a bit. And when they drilled down into that, it didn't dip for all cohorts. It seems to be quite related to cost of living impacts. But generally, more consumers are caring about that. And when you see overseas travel buyers asking about carbon measurements, then you can see that coming. But I think what we have to do is I'm going to be talking about one of our charter members later on in the interview as an example. And for them, they're an accommodation business, and they take the view that while people might not necessarily come to their business because of their sustainability credentials, while they're there, they've got an opportunity to educate people, not hit them over the head, but just gently, lots of funky signage and just nice little touches, like when I walked into the dressing room in the room you're in right now, and I saw the 2 pottery keep cups sitting there for us to borrow for the weekend. I was like, oh, yay, tick, tick. Just little things like that. And what they find is that while people might not come for the sustainability, when they leave the business, one of the things they comment on is the sustainability in their feedback and so forth. And yeah, so it's just that kind of gentle education of people that I think we all need to be focusing on in that visitor economy space.
Oh, I love that. I love that whole idea that they're going to be educated, and probably quite passively, while they're in your accommodation. Because my next question is, I mean, we're tiny, we've only 2 rooms. Do you think our small businesses, a lot of hosted accommodation is quite tiny, are we able to make a difference? Do you think that we're going to make a difference out there?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you can. And I think the opportunity is in that quiet education space and leading by example, setting an example, not only to your guests who are staying with you, but also, then to other businesses in your area. That's very much what the charter's about. It's 70 businesses that are saying, hey, we care. We want to be more sustainable. And so for all the other businesses in Rotorua, I guess they're seeing our members talking about that and being proud about it. And, everyone's got a badge that sits on the website that says, proud to be a member of the Rotorua Sustainable Charter and so forth. And, for every one member we probably have another 5 to 10 Rotorua businesses following us on our social media, for example. So even if they're not members, at least they're still getting a bit of education, drip fed to them. And yeah, so for small business, in a way, I think the smaller the business, the more unique the opportunity it is to actually impact on people, because you are having that one-on-one type conversations and relationship with people.
Yes,
And like I said, you know, you don't have to beat people over the head with a stick, but just those setting those good examples and having them there, you know, and I mean, if someone wanders in with a disposable coffee cup when they arrive, you can always just gently say, oh, we've got keep cups for you to borrow while you're here this weekend. And, you know, whether they choose to take that up or not, I guess that's up to them. But, you know, I think I kind of take the view that if half of us do the right thing half of the time, then that's a much better thing than 10% of people being 100% perfect. You know, it's really just about making better choices more often. And it is lots of little choices. There's a wonderful slogan that Trevelyan's, which is a kiwi fruit business here in the Bay of Plenty, has, and they have a program called Big Little Wins. And that's very much, you know, the philosophy that I hold to, that you just keep making better choices, whether it's in purchasing or energy use or, you know, your waste management or whatever it is. And hopefully over time, that helps shift the dial for the people that stay with you, for your friends, your whānau, and for the other businesses that are there in your community.
This waste management thing, over breakfast, we talked about what to do with some of your waste and how you can recycle this, and the companies that are taking in some of this waste. Can you just tell us a little bit about that? I will put it underneath this interview so people can look them up, where they can take some of these things to be recycled and to be looked after.
Yeah. So you've got things like the New Zealand Soft Plastics Recycling Scheme, where it's mainly aimed at domestic, I guess. So for a bed and breakfast, that I'm sure that's fine. And they have drop-off points at, well, here in Rotorua, it's 2 of the Countdown stores. But if you go onto the website, or just put New Zealand Soft Plastics Recycling Scheme into Google, it'll pop it up for you, and there's a list of locations. So they allow you to drop off things like bread bags, courier bags, you know, the outer cover of the Tim Tam packet or whatever it happens to be. So soft plastics basically, and they get turned into things like fence posts and so on. You've got Mitre 10, for example, and this may not be in every store across the country, but you know, here in Rotorua, you can take in light bulbs for recycling. They also recycle type 5 plastic plant pots. So, you know, the plastic pots you'll buy a plant in, as long as it's clean and dry and it's a type 5 in the triangle, you can take them back there. And some of their stores also have places where you can drop off polystyrene. They work with a company called Xpol. Noel Leeming offers a small appliance recycling program. You don't have to have bought the object from them, but things like printers or laptops, that type of thing, you can take back. They work with a company called Tech Collect, who help recycle those. Bunnings, you can take batteries to for recycling. What else is there? There's some of the phone companies take back mobile phones and that type of thing as well. And there's a company that's here in New Zealand now called TerraCycle, TERRA Cycle, which runs a number of product stewardship schemes with manufacturers. And so I think Colgate's got one with them, some of the coffee pod manufacturers and so on. And if you go to the TerraCycle website, you can look at the different programs, and some of the programs are free where the manufacturer is actually sponsoring the program. And so you can order a box where you can, you know, put the coffee pods and things into over time, and then it'll get collected for free by a courier and taken away and be recycled. Other programs are ones where you have to pay. So, but you can filter on the website as to the free ones and the paid ones. So there's more and more options for recycling coming all the time. But I think, you know, what we have to be focusing on is, well, let's not create the thing that has to be recycled in the first place.
Yeah.
I mean, we can't avoid it in many areas, but I'm a big fan of reuse and really focusing on reuse. So, for example, just personally, everybody should have one of these. There's a million plastic water bottles a minute sold on the planet. So
Wow.
it's not very hard to have one of these and have a keep cup. My husband and I have started taking our cutlery with us when we go to our favourite fish and chip shop. So there's a lady over in Raglan who sews these great little kind of wrap things that you can pop your cutlery and your serviette into and take it with you. And so when we went to the fish and chip shop last night, the lady who runs the fish and chip shop, they're charter members, she actually brought our fish and chips out to us on a plate rather than in a paper or cardboard thing, so we could sit there and eat it. And then she went and washed the plate up and we headed off and took our cutlery home. There's a lot of businesses now starting to offer discounts if people bring a keep cup, whether it's 50 cents off or some sushi places here in town, you can take your container, to put your own container to put your sushi in. So, we've got to kind of keep pushing that reuse as much as we can and pushing back on reducing packaging with suppliers as much as we can. And then, hopefully reduce the amount of stuff that does need to be recycled and does go to landfill. And in the meantime, hopefully there will be good recycling solutions available for the stuff that we haven't yet managed to sort of get out of the economic train.
Yeah, you're right. You've got to stop it before we have to deal with it along the way. So, yeah, good point. Yeah, I certainly didn't realise there were all these places that you could take things to be recycled and taken away from you. So that's fabulous. Really, really good.
Oh,
I
welcome.
did.
I guess that's my job, is to make sure I know about these
Yeah.
things and I can
Yes. Yeah.
let our members know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, people are welcome to follow our Instagram and Facebook feeds at Rotorua Sustainable Charter. We pop up information on things like, hey, it's Plastic Free July, and or it's Recycling Week, or Keep New Zealand Beautiful Week, or Conservation Week. And what we try to do is highlight what our members are doing, so that's good examples. And if we come across, some new recycling thing, always put up information about that. And then obviously the more national and international stage stuff as well. So just kind of drip feeding out information about sustainability to our community. So we have a lot of individuals that follow our social media as well. It isn't just businesses. So that shows that there are people out there that do care, and want to make changes.
Yeah. And just listening to you talk about your members, and there is some awesome, great practice out there, right? Is there a member that sort of stands out for you that is doing some great stuff that we could perhaps replicate for ourselves, for our small businesses?
Well, I think stands out is the wrong thing to say because we've got so many wonderful members. I mean, a lot of our members have been with us the whole 25 years. And so, they're climate positive certified, their waste management's ticked off. Some of them are even doing things like supplier questionnaires for their suppliers, saying, you tell us what you're doing about sustainability and we'll let you know if we're going to grace you with our business. So we've got lots of incredible members, some who've done just such amazing things in the nature restoration space and so on as well. But I mean, in terms of, I guess, accommodation type businesses, a great business to look at is Aura Accommodation here in Rotorua. They won the sustainability waste management category at the New Zealand Hospitality Awards last month before. So obviously, they're recognised at the national level for what they're doing. They take the view that if someone's staying in Rotorua for a long weekend, the longest amount of time they'll spend at any business is with them. They may be asleep for part of it, but and so they just do that gentle education. So there's a lot of signage around the place. I mean, they've got solar, for example, and while it doesn't cover all their needs, it covers, you know, a certain percentage of their needs. And they've recently put in an EV charger, and so next to the EV charger is a sign that says, you know, X, you know, portion of this is being powered by the sun from above you. They've also got the luxury of geothermal to heat their pool and things. So there's little explanation signs about that. They do their waste management really, really well. They measure everything. So when they take waste from a room, the housekeeping cart basically has spots to put, you know, the waste to landfill, the glass, the different, you know, recycling. They recycle their hand soaps with a company up in Auckland, and they actually take the bins out, as it were, and weigh them. So they actually measure every single day the total amount of waste that's being generated on site, and then the percentage of that's, you know, waste going to landfill versus what's going to recycling, and so forth. And if you have a chance to have a look at their website, which I know I think I was sitting there over breakfast going, here, have a look at this. They have these little dials on their website where it actually shows you month to month the percentage of waste diverted to landfill. So I've just got their website up on the other screen, and I think that 64% of total waste diverted from landfill last month. Wow. And you know, and that changes every month. So they monitor all the time. So you know, not that many businesses are sort of going to that level. They may have been doing snap measurements to do waste to landfill for their carbon calculations or something like that. But, you know, or is certainly best practice in that waste management area. They've got on-site composting as well. They've done a lot of work trying to reduce plastics out of their procurement streams. So, for example, now their milk, there's a company in Rotorua called Volcanic Creamery, and they supply milk in returnable glass bottles. And so now those bottles come into the motel in the morning, and the staff put them into smaller bottles for the rooms. And they've also just started working with another local company here called Mitre Coffee, where they roast coffee here in Rotorua, and it's delivered by bike, by e-bike, which is great carbon reduction, and it's in reusable glass jars. So their jars are being reused all the time. And so again, they're getting in larger amounts and then putting it into smaller jars to go into the rooms and so forth. So they're not generating any packaging waste coming out of their milk or their coffee anymore. Yeah, so they just you know, keep chipping away, looking at how can I be more reusable. I mean, they do things like loan keep cups to their guests. So when their guests head out, you know, out into Rotorua for the weekend, they've got an Aura keep cup to use, so that they're not using single-use disposable coffee cups. And then the guests just return that at the end of the weekend, and they've never not had one be returned. Yeah, and you know, and they've also got a very good focus across all the pillars of sustainability as well. So they have a thing called Send Your Service, where guests can choose not to have their room serviced, and then there's a donation made instead to either Big Brothers Big Sisters or Rotorua Trail Trust. And so over the last, I don't know, 10 years or so, they've donated something like $32,000 to Big Brothers Big Sisters in that time. And that's also one of the metrics that they track. So yeah, they're tracking their energy, you know, their waste, their community donations, and a whole range of things. And when you look on the website, they've got lots of good little stories about different things that they're doing, and they're very active at talking about what they're doing on their social media. So, you know, each month when they've calculated their numbers for waste to landfill and percentage of the place powered by solar and amount of donations or whatever, they do a Facebook and Instagram post reporting that. And if they make a change with something, you know, bringing in the Motoria coffee or the volcanic creamery milk, there's a post about that and they're telling people about that. So they're in a constant conversation with their guests and the wider Rotorua community about their sustainability journey, including, you know, one of the things on the website under their sustainability area is, you know, what are our plans for the next 12 months? What's our focus moving forward? And I think, you know, ideally, businesses need to get to a point where they are having that genuine conversation with their customers about this is our values around sustainability. This is why we do the things we do, you know, and I mean, there's always that pull, I guess, particularly in accommodation in terms of luxury and providing for guests, you know, balancing sustainability. And sustainability does not have to mean, you know, hard, horrible toilet paper and not, you know, not having nice things. You know, it's really interesting. Like we've got another wonderful member on the Point here at Lake Rotorua, formerly Peppers on the Point, you know, and they're doing a wonderful job of balancing that very high-end luxury offering with sustainability as well. And it really is just, you know, chipping away at different areas and making those small changes and making better choices where you can. And over time that builds up to a great, you know, sustainability story.
Look, Desirae, thank you so much for talking to me today. It can feel a little bit overwhelming, you know, for people, and where to start to really start making that difference. If there were 2 or 3 points you would say this is where I would start even on this journey, can you? I know this is a little bit throwing it at you off the cuff here, but is there anything that you would say?
I think, I mean, I guess if we look at the environmental side, probably your waste management, just simply getting that right. So making sure that, you know, you are recycling your glass, you are recycling it's 125 plastics, you're not putting the wrong sorts of plastics into the recycling, that type of thing. And then taking advantage of some of those other things that you can recycle, like, you know, the batteries at Bunnings or whatever. So, you know, working on your waste management. I say to our members, do your own signage, you know, just do your own signage on the computer. And sometimes with rubbish signage, the what can go in is less important than what the sign says about what shouldn't go in. So if you're seeing things contaminating, you know, that recycling stream regularly, then add that to the list of, you know, yes and no.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So waste is an area you can work on. And you have to look at what your waste is, you know, you have to actually see what's going into that waste stream. And I think the type of business that a bed and breakfast is, you're able to see that you are handling, you know, that waste. It's not some giant tourism business where nobody ever looks in the bins. And so you can see the types of things that are waste, and then that gives you an opportunity to have a think about, well, am I seeing a lot of excess packaging on something, and could I be trying to find a better choice with that? You know, it's for a small business. I have people say to me, look, if I rang up our supplier and said, you know, please stop sending me T-shirts in individual plastic bags inside the box, just send them to me in the box. Well, they won't listen to me because I'm only a little, you know. I say, well, yeah, they might not listen to you when you ring up, but if you're the 20th business that rings up and tells them that over the course of a year, they will start to listen, you know. And never underestimate your power as a small business to be an example, you know, for your guests and for your community. So I think waste and packaging, and just understanding that sustainability is more than the environmental, you know, it's also people and community and that governance and that cultural aspect as well. And start talking about it, you know, don't be shy. Talk about it. I mean, maybe once every couple of months your post isn't, here's the wine glasses and the sunset and all this is awesome, which it is. Maybe it is a little post about we've started a worm farm, you know, and our food's going that way. Like, you never know what will capture people's imagination. One of the holiday parks here, who's a member, has all these great posts, and I was chatting to the guy that looks after their social media, and I said, "Oh, what's your most popular post been?" And he said, "Redoing the veggie garden." You know,
Yes,
because it's practical and people can see it, and yeah, and we quite often see that with our members. You know, they'll post something about sustainability, and it'll actually be the post that goes nuts compared to their regular posts, because it just kind of, people can see that they're making an effort to do something. So, you know, don't be shy. When it's appropriate within your marketing plan, talk about what you are doing.
Yeah. Desirae, look, I've taken up way too much of your time, but it's fascinating. And I absolutely love the work that you're doing and the way that you're bringing along businesses within Rotorua. They're so lucky to have the charter and you banging the drum and keeping everything moving in the right direction. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And hopefully we can chat again soon about any new initiatives that we should be doing. So have a fantastic rest of week.
Thanks, Donna. Absolute pleasure to catch up with you again, and best wishes to everyone.
Thank you.